When Karen called 911 on a black man and his daughter building a snowman, she thought she was protecting her neighborhood. But what she discovered next would change everything she thought she knew about her neighbors and herself. Subscribe to the channel and follow along to see how this powerful story unfolds. Let me know in the comments, where are you watching from? The sun had barely risen over the quiet suburban neighborhood of Maplewood, USA. A fresh blanket of snow covered the streets, lawns, and rooftops, turning the world into a winter wonderland. It was the kind of morning that begged for hot cocoa, cozy blankets, and the simple joy of building a snowman. For Marcus Johnson and his 8-year-old daughter Amara, it was the perfect opportunity to spend some quality time together. Marcus, a 35-year-old software engineer, had been working long hours all week, and he was determined to make the most of his Saturday. Bundled up in thick coats, scarves, and gloves, the duo stepped out into the crisp winter air, their laughter echoing through the quiet street. Amara was already brainstorming ideas for their snowman. "Daddy, can we give him a hat and a scarf? And maybe a carrot nose?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Marcus chuckled, ruffling her hair. "Of course, sweetheart. We'll make the best snowman this neighborhood has ever seen." Little did they know, their innocent morning fun was about to take a dramatic turn. Across the street, in a meticulously maintained colonial-style house, Karen Thompson was sipping her morning coffee while peering out the window. Karen, a 42-year-old stay-at-home mom, prided herself on keeping her neighborhood safe and orderly. She was the self-appointed watchdog of Maplewood, always on the lookout for anything, or anyone, that seemed out of place. When she spotted Marcus and Amara building a snowman in their front yard, her brow furrowed. She didn't recognize them. Sure, she had seen Marcus jogging in the mornings and Amara playing in the yard occasionally, but she had never bothered to introduce herself. To Karen, they were strangers. And in her mind, strangers were a threat. Her heart raced as she grabbed her phone. "This is an emergency," she muttered to herself. "There's a man and a child outside, and I don't know what they're doing. What if they're casing the neighborhood? What if they're dangerous?" Without a second thought, Karen dialed 911. The 911 operator answered promptly. "911, what's your emergency?" Karen's voice trembled with a mix of fear and self-righteousness. "Hi, yes, I need to report a suspicious person in my neighborhood. There's a man and a little girl outside, and I don't know what they're doing. They're just standing there, and it's making me very uncomfortable." The operator, trained to handle all kinds of calls, responded calmly. "Ma'am, can you describe the individuals? Are they doing anything illegal or threatening?" Karen hesitated. "Well, no, not exactly. They're just there. But I don't recognize them, and it's making me nervous. Can you send someone to check it out?" The operator assured her that a patrol car would be dispatched to investigate. Karen hung up, feeling a strange sense of satisfaction. She had done her duty to protect the neighborhood. 15 minutes after Karen's 911 call, a police cruiser pulls up to the curb, its tires crunching softly on the snow-covered street. Officer Daniels, a seasoned cop with a calm but authoritative presence, steps out of the car. He adjusts his hat and scans the area, his eyes landing on Marcus and Amara, who are putting the final touches on their snowman. Amara is giggling as she places a bright orange carrot nose on the snowman's face, while Marcus adjusts a striped scarf around its neck. Officer Daniels approaches them, his breath visible in the cold air. "Good morning, sir," he says, his tone polite but firm. "We received a call about a suspicious person in the area. Can I ask what you're doing here?" Marcus looks up, startled. He straightens slowly, brushing snow off his gloves. Good morning, officer," he replies, his voice steady but tinged with confusion. "I'm just building a snowman with my daughter. Is there a problem?" Amara, sensing the tension, steps closer to her father, her small hand gripping the edge of his coat. "Daddy, what's going on?" she whispers, her wide eyes darting between Marcus and the officer. Officer Daniels glances at the snowman, then back at Marcus. His expression softens slightly as he takes in the scene, a father and daughter enjoying a simple winter morning. "Someone called in saying they didn't recognize you and found your presence suspicious," he explains. "Do you live around here?" Marcus exhales deeply, his breath forming a small cloud in the cold air. He knows exactly what's happening, and it's a familiar sting. "Yes, officer," he says, pointing to the house behind him. "I'm Marcus Johnson, and this is my daughter Amara. We've lived here for 3 years." Officer Daniels nods, his demeanor shifting from cautious to apologetic. He glances back at his patrol car, then at Marcus. "I see. Well, it looks like there's been a misunderstanding. Sorry to bother you, sir. You have a good day." As the officer walks back to his car, Marcus watches him go, a mix of frustration and resignation settling in his chest. He places a reassuring hand on Amara's shoulder, but his mind races with the unfairness of the situation. He knows this isn't the first time something like this has happened, and it probably won't be the last. Amara looks up at him, her brow furrowed. "Daddy, why did the police come?" she asks innocently. Marcus forces a smile, crouching down to her level. "It's okay, sweetheart," he says gently. "Sometimes people make mistakes. Let's finish our snowman, okay?" As they return to their snowy creation, the patrol car drives away, leaving behind a quiet street and a lingering sense of injustice. But for Marcus, the moment is a reminder of the world he lives in, a world where even building a snowman with his daughter can be seen as a threat. Meanwhile, across the street, Karen watches from her window, her heart pounding as she realizes the gravity of what she's done. The scene outside isn't what she expected, and for the first time, she begins to question her actions. This moment marks the beginning of a turning point, not just for Karen, but for the entire neighborhood. From her living room window, Karen watches the scene unfold with growing unease. She had expected the police to question Marcus more thoroughly, maybe even take him away for further investigation. But instead, Officer Daniel simply talks to him for a few moments, nods, and walks back to his patrol car. The interaction is calm, uneventful, and nothing like the dramatic confrontation she had imagined. Confused and frustrated, Karen steps outside, her slippers crunching in the snow as she hurries toward the patrol car. "Officer," she calls out, her voice tinged with desperation. "What's going on? Is everything okay?" Officer Daniels pauses, turning to face her. His expression is neutral, but there's a hint of sternness in his eyes. "Ma'am," he says, his tone measured. "The gentleman over there lives here. He was just building a snowman with his daughter. There's no issue." Karen's face flushes with embarrassment. She glances over at Marcus and Amara, who are now heading inside their house, their laughter echoing faintly in the cold air. "But, I didn't recognize him," she stammers, trying to justify her actions. "I thought he might be, up to no good." Officer Daniels crosses his arms, his gaze steady. "Ma'am, calling 911 without a legitimate reason is a serious matter. It wastes valuable resources and can cause unnecessary stress for everyone involved." He pauses, letting his words sink in. "I suggest you get to know your neighbors before jumping to conclusions." Karen stands frozen, her mind racing. She wants to argue, to explain that she was just trying to protect the neighborhood, but the officer's words hit her like a punch to the gut. She watches as the patrol car drives away, leaving her alone on the snowy street. For the first time, Karen feels a pang of guilt. She replays the morning in her mind, the way Marcus and Amara had been laughing, the joy on the little girl's face as she placed the carrot nose on the snowman. There was nothing threatening about them. Nothing at all. As she trudges back to her house, Karen's thoughts are a whirlwind of emotions. She realizes how her actions were driven by fear and prejudice, not by any real evidence of wrongdoing. She had judged Marcus based on assumptions, not facts, and in doing so, she had caused harm to an innocent family. Inside her house, Karen sits on the edge of her couch, staring out the window at Marcus's home. She thinks about the kind of person she wants to be, someone who builds bridges, not walls. Someone who sees the humanity in others, rather than jumping to conclusions. For the first time in a long time, Karen feels a sense of humility. She knows she can't undo what she's done, but she also knows she can do better. She resolves to make things right, not just for Marcus and Amara, but for herself. This moment marks the beginning of Karen's realization, a turning point that will challenge her beliefs, push her out of her comfort zone, and ultimately change the way she sees the world. It's a small step, but it's a step in the right direction. And sometimes, that's all it takes to begin a journey of growth and understanding. The rest of the day passes slowly for Karen. She can't shake the weight of what happened that morning. The image of Marcus and Amara building their snowman keeps replaying in her mind, juxtaposed with the memory of her own actions. She feels a deep sense of shame, but also a growing determination to make things right. That evening, as the sun sets and the neighborhood is bathed in the soft glow of streetlights, Karen sits in her living room, staring out the window. She watches as Marcus's house comes alive with the warm light of family life. Through the curtains, she can see Amara playing in the living room, her laughter faintly audible even from a distance. Marcus moves about in the kitchen, likely preparing dinner. It's a scene of normalcy, of love and connection, a stark contrast to the narrative Karen had constructed in her mind earlier that day. Karen takes a deep breath, her resolve hardening. She knows she can't undo what she did, but she can take responsibility for it. She can apologize. she can try to be better. The next morning, Karen wakes up early, her nerves buzzing with anticipation. She dresses carefully, choosing an outfit that feels approachable and friendly. She grabs a small potted plant from her kitchen, a peace offering, and steps outside into the crisp winter air. The snow from the previous day has hardened into a thin layer of ice, crunching under her boots as she makes her way across the street to Marcus's house. She hesitates for a moment on the porch, her hand hovering over the doorbell. What if he slams the door in her face? What if he yells at her? What if he calls the police on her? But then she remembers the look on Amara's face when the police had arrived, confused, scared, innocent. Karen knows she owes it to them to try. She rings the doorbell and waits, her heart pounding. A few seconds later, the door opens, and Marcus stands there, his expression guarded but not unkind. "Can I help you?" he asks, his tone neutral. Karen swallows hard, clutching the potted plant in her hands. "Hi, I'm Karen," she says, her voice trembling slightly. "I live across the street. I wanted to apologize for what happened yesterday. I was wrong to call the police, and I'm sorry for any trouble I caused." Marcus studies her for a moment, his eyes searching hers. He doesn't say anything right away, and the silence feels heavy. Karen wonders if she should say more, if she should explain herself, but then Marcus nods. "Thank you for apologizing," he says quietly. "It means a lot." Karen exhales, relief washing over her. "I'd like to get to know you and your family better," she adds, her voice gaining strength. "Maybe we can start over?" Marcus looks at her for a long moment, then extends his hand. "I'd like that," he says, a small smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. Karen shakes his hand, feeling a sense of closure she hadn't realized she needed. As she walks back to her house, she feels lighter, as if a burden has been lifted from her shoulders. She knows this is just the beginning, that real change takes time and effort, but it's a step in the right direction. Later that day, Karen watches from her window as Marcus and Amara play in the yard again. This time, instead of fear or suspicion, she feels a sense of connection. She waves when Amara looks her way, and the little girl waves back, her smile bright and unguarded. Karen realizes that sometimes, the biggest lessons come from the smallest moments. And in the end, it wasn't just a snowman they had built. It was a bridge between neighbors. A bridge that Karen is now determined to cross, one step at a time.